All right, let's go. Let us go. This here. Looks like we are ready to go. Huh.
We need a leap! We need a leap!
Thank you so much, Saturn Nobi, for subscribing. Really appreciate it. Should I change this to... That looks beautiful. Get that weak stuff out of here. I think that's good. We'll start right now. Well, let's just go, guys. Make sure this is all good. Let's go. Yeah, maybe I'll do it every Tuesday. Sounds like a good custom. What's going on, everybody? This is Fry. So today we are doing another tier list. Today we are going to be doing it for the Brainy class, going through starting with the 1-cost cards all the way through Trickster. I will be explaining, as usual, what are the uses of every single card, like what kind of decks they fit into, and then putting them on this tier list, as you can see right over here. Just letting you know sort of what is the... I'm going to basically be doing it in terms of usefulness. So the S tier are going to be, it's going to be good in basically every single deck, or it's just going to be, in particular decks, one of the most powerful cards in the game. And the F tier will basically be never include in any deck at all. A will be like it's good in a lot of, very good in a lot of decks. B is like it's good in some, has some solid uses. C is barely has uses, and D is maybe only use it for budget decks. But anyway, let's just get right into the game, and here we go. As usual, if you want me to do another tier list, let me know in the comment section below on YouTube what class you would like to see me do next. And we are just going to start off with Cardboard Zombie. Alright, next, we're going to go right into Chimney Sweep. Chimney Sweep. So this card actually has really good stats for a 1-drop. It's a 1-cost 3/2. It also is weak just because it can only be played on the Heights lane. You can sort of use this as an aggro card. It doesn't seem to be quite as useful as its stats would suggest. I am. Where am I gonna put Chimney Sweep? In terms of actual, the problem with Chimney Sweep is if you ever get two, and one, let's say one's already on the field, it's a problem. Also, with the thing with aggro cards, the fact that you're limiting this to one lane, aggro cards you definitely want to be putting onto the field.
Cardboard zombie F. Unsubbed.
Thanks so much, Matahiwu. Aggro cards, you want to be able to put them onto the field in any place that you can, because you have to be placing your aggro cards in an open lane, just so they'll be able to hit face. I haven't really found the great use of Chimney Sweep. I think it's okay as a one-drop for budget players, but because there's so many better one-drops in the Brainy class and otherwise than Chimney Sweep, even as aggro cards, I am going to put this right into C tier. Moving right along. We are going to go to Interdimensional Zombie. Okay. I'm going to explain this one final time. Interdimensional Zombie used to be a 1-cost 1/3 with this exact ability that when you play another science card, this will turn into a random 3-cost card. So really, if you look at it, just a 1-cost random 3-drop is extremely good. And this is a very powerful card regardless. Now, what they did to this card, I'll show you for 1 second. They decided to make Interdimensional Zombie. It says it's now overall better. 1-cost 2/2 instead of a 1/3, which is a huge blunder. The explanation that they're giving is that you can use this sort of as an aggro card, so having 2 damage is obviously for aggro cards a lot better than 1 damage. You don't want to have 1 damage pinging your opponent's block meter constantly and giving them superpowers for free. That's the best way to lose in an aggro deck. Interdimensional Zombie was much better as a 1/3 because it's only going to be hitting face that first turn. You can just play it on turn 1. Turn 2, you're always going to try to be transforming this into that 3-cost card. And the fact that it can survive that 1 turn, it doesn't die to all the 2 damage plants and tricks like Banana Bomb or just anything that really does 2 damage. And you're able to get a 3-cost card on the field on turn 2. It's just ridiculous, considering its cost. Now, that being said, I have played Interdimensional Zombie in a lot of decks even since then. It still works in Conjure Leaps. It works in Professor Brainstorm. You can check those decks out on YouTube. You really can use Interdimensional Zombie even in like a really aggressive sort of like science or just brainy aggro deck. It really does work as they intended, but it certainly is not overall better. It was definitely overall better as a 1/3. All things considered, though, this actually is a very good card. I'm going to be sticking it in A tier. Moving right along, this is an example of one of the cards in the game, Leprechaun Imp, that really just got nerfed into the Ice Age. This formerly was a 1/2/2 and shuffle 2 pots of gold into your deck. Now, if you get a pot of gold in your hand, it draws 3 cards. This was a ridiculously good card for... this was an amazing card for miracle decks. Now, a miracle deck is where you're trying to control your opponent, stall for time, draw a ton of cards, and get a big miracle, like a big miracle play, like a big combo play. That can work together with, let's say, teachers, where you play a bunch of teachers and a bunch of going virals. It would work with Stompedon to be able to draw a few cards. Now that it only shuffles 1 pot of gold into your deck, this has become almost a useless, unusable card. The chances of getting that 1 pot is so unlikely that really, otherwise, it's just a 1-cost 2/2 imp, and there's such better cards usually to run. They really nerfed a lot of the card draw, the super efficient card draw, like Leprechaun Imp and Regifter, we'll see later. On the zombie side, has made a lot of these sort of miracle-type decks not as good. Since this really is not a useful card anymore, I'm going to, but maybe it's okay. I'm really split between C and D tier. I have seen people, again, use this and get those pots of gold, but even in the decks, like the weird Stompedon decks, you're running 4 of these and 4 Regifters. It's really not. It's really still unlikely. You hardly ever see one of those pots of gold actually surface in your deck. So I'm going to be sticking this in D tier. Almost unplayable. That's the reason. And we'll move right along to Mustache Waxer. So this is a very interesting deck. One of the most, like, I feel underviewed videos I've ever put up on YouTube is actually called Professor Mustache, or it's all about that mustache. You can find that on the Fry 'em Up channel. I actually want to show you guys this deck when I'm explaining exactly how good Mustache Waxer is, because this is probably, this is definitely going to be the best deck for it. Do I even have Professor Mustache here? I don't have it. Oh my gosh. I don't have Professor Mustache. Crazy. Cronky. Maybe I'll just put it up on the stream. La di da di da di da. La di da 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 da. So I have a way to get a deck list on the screen here. Image. Deck list. I'll just pull this up for you guys for just 1 second. Professor. This is how I run this deck now. So here is the Professor Mustache aggro deck. This is really the best deck for Mustache Waxer. It actually allows you to play like a lot of little cards onto the field on turn 2. You can play a Mustache Waxer and a couple of your grave robbers. The fact it survives in the field and gives you a lot of little extra brains every single time you play a Bungee Plumber or play your Quasar, it allows you to play the Quasar superpower much more efficiently. And also helps you ramp up a little bit to, let's say, a Mustache Monument Viking, which is really good finisher in this deck. This is sort of the most useful deck for Mustache Waxer. I haven't found any other decks besides for this one Professor Brainstorm. You can try doing with you Giganticus, and you have like Frosty Mustache, but again, you really need there to be a lot of like 1-cost mustaches to make this worth it. And for that reason, since it is a solid card, but it's really kind of only good in just one deck, I'm going to put this in B tier. And let's move right along. This is another card that has been through a series of changes. It used to be a 4-cost card. They tried it as a 2-cost card. Now as a 1-cost card, this is actually quite useful. I do run this in Professor Brainstorm, so you can check it out in that deck. It really is a decent just aggro card. You put it on the field every single time you play an environment. This will do a bonus attack. There are plenty of environments in the game. Let's say the Crazy class and Beastie class both have environments that can buff this up. Let's say like Area 22, you can also use it together with the Meteor Z environment, just to give that a little extra attack. It works in Science decks. This gets buffed up by Drone Engineer. I would say overall, very solid card. I'm not going to say it's one of the best cards in the game. Now, I don't have an icon, actually, an updated icon for the 1-cost Imp here for some reason. It is missing from the icons. Where the heck is it? It's in the 2-cost? Oh, here it is. I found it. These icons that were on the wiki that I'm actually using are all like out of date, so it actually still says it's 2-cost. Obviously, it's a 1-cost too. This is the Neutron Imp. I am going to be placing this. Where is this gonna go? Solid B. It's not quite as good as Interdimensional Zombie. I'm going to give it a solid B. Moving right along. Paparazzi, ugh. Where am I going to put Paparazzi? This obviously was only good in a deck with a lot of little tricks. The problem with Paparazzi is that it's such a high maintenance card. First of all, in terms of the deck building, if you don't have a lot of cheap tricks, this is not going to be a good card. So you're just forced to shove a lot of cheap tricks just to be able to buff this up. And then the problem is it's also high maintenance because once you play a bunch of the cheap tricks, in order to buff this up, then it just gets removed by Shamrock, any basically big removal card. You've invested so much into the Paparazzi that it really is, it really just kind of dies too easily in the early and in the late game.
Easiest tier.
Thank you, Icy Phoenix, for subscribing 3 months. Really appreciate it. Since this is, again, this is an okay card for budget players, but it really is not very useful. For late game players, maybe you can stick this in a trickster deck, and since you're anyway using a lot of cheap tricks, it just puts a threat on the field. Usually when you play Paparazzi before the trick stage even comes into fruition, this is just going to get removed off the field, and for that reason, pretty crappy. I'm going to put this in C tier. Moving right along. Okay, this is actually one of the best cards in the entire game. Easy claps, putting it right into S tier. Now, in order to understand why Teleport is so good, you have to understand a really important concept with PvZ Heroes, and that is Last Say. Having Last Say means you have the ability to look at your opponent's play, and you have that final reaction of that turn to your opponent. And this really, plants usually have Last Say, and that's why plant cards, if you notice, plant cards typically have less stats than zombies, because plants are typically better because they can be played reactively to the zombies. Zombies play first, then the plants are able to either front it with whatever minion they want. They can play in a different lane if they're going aggro. Teleport really reverses that role and allows the zombies to be played in reaction to the plants. The fact that it costs one brain is good because you don't want to be playing, like this actually I think used to cost 0, which was ridiculous. You want, even a zombie that costs 1 less, reacting to the plants is usually good enough if you have Last Say to accompany it and you're teleporting this in. This also does draw you a card, which makes it cycle through your deck. It's just an amazing card, easy S tier. And we are going to move right along. This is an especially good card with like a lot of late game finishers. A lot of big cards, if you stick them onto the field, they really just get removed very easily by any kind of big removal in Shamrock. I hate Shamrock. And stuff like that. This really negates that problem. There's a lot of cards in the game which are only playable with Teleport. Let's say like Zombot and Gondola, and even Trickster and Valkyrie are really hard to play if you don't have either Teleport or Mustache Monument. We'll get into those in just a second. Moving right along, we have Beam Me Up. Oof. Beam Me Up is an extremely solid card. Again, this is really just a 2-cost 2/3, but it has Last Say. It also is a trick, so it helps out your tricksters. Just being a 2-cost 2/3 Last Say minion is so good at controlling. You can use this to basically counter anything the plants play on turn 2. It'll counter most things. And even in the late game, this can be used just as a little bit of extra damage, a little way to proc the block. It can be used to just be stick in front of one of your opponent's big minions, just prevent damage that turn. So essentially this could end up healing you by preventing damage for, 6, 7, 8 damage when played. This is an extremely solid card. I'm actually debating whether to put this in S tier or A tier, because this is such like an auto-include card in almost every Brainy. There's never wrong to put Beam Me Up in. Sometimes you just don't have room for it, but if you did, Beam Me Up would never be a bad decision. Because it's oh man. I'm seriously considering putting this in S tier. I know the chat's voting for A. It's gotta at least be A. Beam Me Up is such an underrated card. It's so good. Because it doesn't actually go into every single deck, it is part of Valk Trickster Hybrid, a really important part of Valk Trickster Hybrid, because it is both a minion and a trick. It has that sort of attribute. It's so high A tier. I'm going to say really high A tier. Absolutely solid card. And again, there's almost no deck that putting Beam Me Up is a bad thing. We'll keep it in A. Moving right along, we have Call Me on My Cell Phone. This card is too expensive. It just does not have enough stats. It's nice having cards that can sort of cycle through your deck like this for miracles. You know, you're trying to really get a combo. But again, as a zombie, this is not a good card. As a plant, this actually would be a very good plant, because you could just spend turn 2. Again, like I explained before, last say, you'd be able to use this to block whatever your opponent played on turn 2 to stall for time and also draw a card. But again, as a zombie, this is just going to be sitting and usually just pinging your opponent's block meter for 1 and actually giving them a lot of free superpowers besides for giving you the 1 card. This is almost an unplayable card, almost never put in any deck. And for that reason, we are going to be putting it right in the get that weak stuff out of here tier, in F tier. Moving right along. Okay, here's a little gem, Cosmic Scientist. And now this is actually very similar to Cell Phone Zombie. It has 1 extra health, who cares? The main thing is that it has Bullseye, and it always conjures you a guy with Bullseye. The Bullseye ability makes it a lot better, because again, it's not going to be pinging your opponent's block meter and charging that up. So that's super important. This does have some science synergy. It gives you another science card. This is particularly good with like Hugh Giganticus when you combine it with Dr. Spacetime, because that will make this conjured card cost less, and also has the value of Bullseye. It's still not a great card because it has extremely low stats. I think if this was like a 2/2/2, this would be a much better card. It still wouldn't even be that good. But it doesn't do a lot, but it's just not bad. I'm gonna say, because it's quite useful in a couple of decks, but not very useful in any deck, I'm gonna put it in C tier. Moving right along. Cryobrain. Okay. This is a card I probably... Here's the problems with Cryobrain, and I admit I might not really know the uses of this card. I know, like, there's this weird Immorticia Teleport Zombot deck that Cryobrains are really important. I'm still trying to get that to work, but the problem with this card is how much tempo and card advantage you lose when you play it. If your opponent plays anything on the board on turn 2 and you respond with Cryobrain, now you're going to be getting a lot of extra brain every single turn. Really, you're going to have 1 extra brain. So first of all, the 1 extra brain is not necessarily going to be usable. Like, you're not always going to have exactly 4 brains to spend on 3 and then exactly 5 spent on 4. You very often, you anyway have an extra brain. So it's not like guaranteed value for every single turn for the rest of the game, even though theoretically it could be that way. This is mostly used as a ram card if you have super late game cards and you want to play them earlier, like Teleport Zombot or some weird, really expensive strategy. That's usually not the right way to play PvZ Heroes anyway, to rely on super late game cards. You want to try really anyway getting your finishers out efficiently on turn 6 and 7, even in control decks. It's not like a great ramp card. I feel like if Cryobrain at least drew you a card, it would be a lot better to like sort of have that cycle. But you end up being, first of all, minus turn 2, you didn't do anything, plus you're minus a card in your hand, which sort of is a huge problem. I think this is useful in a couple decks, but it's usually a piece of trash garbage. I think I'm just going to put this in C tier, since again, let's say it's more useful than Leprechaun, but it's really not usable in a lot. I could almost put this in D, but I'm putting it in C almost benefit of the doubt wise, just because I do think that I am probably not... I haven't found like the full potential of this card, and it might actually exist. And I do know that, like in the Teleport and Saman's Teleport Zombot deck, this is an important card, so we'll leave it in C. I think it fits there. Alright, moving right along. We need a leap! Easy S tier. I'm actually going to put this in A. It's an extremely solid card. The fact that it draws a card is very good. Like, if it didn't draw a card, it would be undervalued. Sort of like what I explained, it would give you card disadvantage like Cryobrain. You can actually base entire decks. Of course, there's Conjure Leap. You can look that up on YouTube. It's called Best Video of 2018. That was just amazing. We found Evolutionary Leap to be super good in Conjure Leap in Teleport, like Rustbolt King deck, where you start teleporting in your kings, turning things into knights, and then this will automatically turn every 7-drop into either an Octo Zombie or a Plankwalker on 8, and then a Zombot on 9 and a Trickster on 10. I like the fact that you have such solid leapable cards, especially the turn 9 Zombot. Really makes this card into such a gem. I'm not putting an S tier because I'm not going to say it's like it's only useful, again, in some decks, but in those decks it's obviously really, really good. You can even just use this to buff your interdimensional zombie. It turns into a 3, you turn that into a 4, into a 5. It works obviously very well together with Transformation Station. We will be getting to that in just a second. Now, here is Lurch for Lunch. This card probably would have been an S tier if it weren't for the invent of Mustache Monument. Now, this was a set 1 card. This was so essential in basically every Brainy deck to have your bonus attacks. It doesn't matter if it's going to be for a Valk deck where you need the Valk to do an extra bonus attack, or you're teleporting in your Tricksters and using bonus attacks. It's really a great finisher. It costs 2. The problem is Mustache Monument has basically outclassed it. It seems like this is almost always better, unless you have like Blob, which obviously won't work with Mustache Monument. I'll explain Blob in a little bit. Mustache Monument really is better with Valk, better with Trickster. It's better with, Viking. The cards that you really just want to do that extra bonus attack. It seems like Mustache Monument. The reason Mustache Monument is better is because the problem with this card, the weakness of Lurch for Lunch is that it's a zombie card, which means you're sticking your zombies on the field, and maybe you'll be one of the one you really want to do that Lurch will survive, and then you'll have the Lurch for Lunch. But your opponent can always remove any minion you play off the field. Mustache Monument, you don't have that problem. You just play Mustache Monument and you immediately play the zombie on it, and it does the bonus attack. So this is mostly good if you're in a deck you're teleporting in minions. It is fine. It's good in tempo. It's never a bad idea to have a couple Lurch for Lunches in your deck. I also would put this in A tier. I think just because it's outclassed by Mustache Monument, I am going to be sticking this in B tier. But again, it's a solid card, and it's very good in a lot of decks. Just not as good as Mustache. Moving right along. Pool Shark. This is a card I've hardly found any uses for. I did make a Professor Brainstorm, like a Bullseye aggro deck, or I don't know if it was Brainstorm or Super Brains. You can sort of teleport this in. Again, this is a lot of damage, Bullseye damage for a 2-cost card. It's a really good aggro card, but again, the problem is with any zombie that just has stats is it just gets removed. It only has 1 health. It's so easy. I mean, every removal card in the game is going to be able to counter Pool Shark, so it's kind of only good if you teleport it in. Teleporting in, do bonus attacks, it's fine. It actually is good in a couple decks. It is a viable card, so I'm going to be putting it in C tier. Let's say low C tier. Alright, moving right along, we got Teleportation Zombie. So this is very similar to Teleport. This is the minion version of Teleport. And I am going to be sticking this up in S tier because this is seriously one of the best cards in the game. So when do you run Teleport and when do you run Teleportation Zombie in your deck? They're very similar. Again, they just do that same thing. You're able to get your finishers on the field without your opponent answering them and be able to cause ruckus. Teleportation Zombie is also good at teleporting instead of just finishers, a lot of like small cards. So the advantage of Teleportation Zombie is that it can be used multiple times. So especially if you are trying to, control your opponent by teleporting in, let's say, Deadly Imps. I have a deck with, I think it was Huge Giganticus, where you teleport in Deadly Imps and you control your opponent. You can find that in the Huge Giganticus playlist on Fry 'em Up. Or if you are teleporting in, let's say you're trying to do a bunch of teachers and they're going viral. Not a very good strategy, but you can do multiple times with the Teleportation Zombie. And even if you're going for big minions, you teleport in a big guy that costs 7. The next turn, if they don't remove the Teleportation Zombie off the field, you'll be able to get a teleport in for an 8-cost card. The problem with Teleportation Zombie is that it can be answered. So when you play this on the field, any grave removal card will just get this off. And especially if you really need to teleport in your minions in order to win, Teleportation Zombie is actually a less reliable option than just teleport. There's almost nothing in the deck in the game that counters teleport except for Brainy is like the one card that will prevent you from playing teleport. So there are a lot of instances where you just run 4 teleports and 4 Teleportation Zombies. You can teleport this in, then wait till next turn and actually be able to teleport in, let's say, your 7-cost card on turn 7 instead of having to wait till turn 8 to teleport in using a teleport. Overall, it is never a bad thing to run in a deck. It's actually one of the most powerful cards in the game, again, because it flips the advantage, the last say, to the zombie side, and we'll just leave it at that. Moving right along, we have Transformation Station. So I'm going to stick this up in A tier together with the Leap. It's super, super good in Leap decks. It's a very similar card, obviously, but it's an environment. So it covers your opponent's environments, but has the weakness that it can also get covered. The fact this is a zombie environment, though, means you're basically always going to get at least one leap out of this. Which makes it super, super good. Make sure you do not play this on the field and then start playing minions into it. You have to play this onto a lane where you already have a minion in order to make sure you at least get that one leap, or else your opponent's going to cover this and you're going to just lose a card for free. Moving right along, we have the Zombot Drone Engineers. This actually used to be a 2-cost 1/3, and it was pretty weak. There's just a lot of things that even opponent puts like a 2/3 in front of it, it'll answer this in a couple of turns. Now that it's a 1/4, this is an extremely strong card. I would really suggest budget players focusing on science decks because they're really strong. Any cheap science cards you have, you can use together with the Drone Engineer. If you have Teleportation Zombie, that's great, but you can combine this with your really any science cards that have a decent amount of health. It'll keep them growing, and like Wormhole Gatekeeper, you can even use this together with Electrician, which will, again, the Electrician will either buff itself or buff the Drone Engineer up. Thank you so much, Saberbomb, 29 months, really appreciate it. And the big finish in any science deck is going to be Gadget Scientist. This will make all of your science cards do bonus attacks. I really think this is a super solid card, particularly for budget players, and I'm actually going to be putting this in A tier. You can actually use this in some top tier decks, and it's extremely good too. But I'm really valuing it in A tier mostly because of how just overall good stats is, especially for budget players. Let's keep it going. Oh man. So Brain Vendor, this is a really hard card to rate because sometimes this is useless and sometimes this is one of the best cards in the entire game. Because you don't want to just be throwing this into a deck and say, hey, look, it's a 3-cost 2/1. That's not. It's a free 2/1 because you spend 3 brains and you get 3 brains back. That's not a good option because, again, spending on turn 3, you can't play this on turn 1 or turn 2. So on turn 3 and on, just having a card disadvantage, you spend an entire card just to put a 2/1 on the field is not a good strategy. But you do have to combine this. If you combine this with other strats, it becomes very good. First of all, with either of the leap cards, this will be a 3. You can play this on turn 3 and then leap it into a 4-cost card. You even have 1 extra brain besides for that to spend that turn. So it's a super efficient. Same thing with Transformation Station. This does work very well with. This is a decent card with Nebula. Because if you have a Nebula on the field and you play Brain Vendor, you'll actually gain 2 extra brains and be able to play a more expensive card this turn. It works very well with Blob because it gives you those. Again, none of these Nebula and Blob, they're not really top tier strats anymore. Overall good card. It's not. It's usually horrible, but in some decks it is quite good. And for that reason, I'm going to be putting this in B tier. Moving right along, Duckstash. So Duckstash, I would say, is really only going to be good in a Mustache Synergy deck. The fact it sort of is a versatile card, because it's a 3-cost 3/2, which it'll usually draw something. Makes it good. It works with Mustache Waxer, because then you'll have an extra brain that turn. You can also evolve this to get a 5/4. Now you have to be careful with the Mustache evolution. First of all, it only can evolve from Mustache cards. So you really have to have a Mustache on the field for this to work. Also, once you turn 2 cards into a 5/4, essentially, it can just be answered by Shamrocket super easily for the exact cost of this card, which is 3. So you got to be really careful when evolving. You really want to do that if you're anyway ahead on the field and you have 4 full lanes. That's when Duckstash becomes good. Because this card is really only useful in really just like one Mustache deck, and you don't even really need it in Mustache decks. I'm going to be putting it in C tier, and we'll just move right along to Electrician. Here we go. Just checking the stream. Everything's fine. Here's Electrician. So, this is basically, in my opinion, a worse version of Lurch for Lunch. It is a Lurch for Lunch that can be answered. It can be removed by a Gravestone. You can play this on the field with the hopes that you're going to have a big guy that you want to do the bonus attack. Again, the more damage you do a bonus attack, the more valuable the card is. So if you play this together and you have, let's say, a huge card with 7 or 8 attack on the field, so you play it, you hope that guy's going to survive, but usually the guy gets removed. That's the problem with Electrician. It's a lot better to have, let's say, Lurch for Lunch in your deck, because then if your guy gets removed, don't play Lurch for Lunch, and you'll actually save this as a card. A 2/2 that does a bonus attack is not a good idea. This does work quite well with Drone Engineer. There's you can actually use this with Immorticia. I do have some decks. You can look up the Immorticia Secret Agent decks. You'll find one that has Electrician in it, where you actually use Secret Agent, which scoops this card back up in your hand and gives it 3/3, and then you can play it on the field as like a little mini trickster, where it pops up and then automatically does 5 damage bonus attack, which is obviously very good for a 3-cost card. A little bit of a high maintenance strategy. Again, this does, I can't say this is horrible, because it's fine with Drone Engineer because it is a science card. Also, just making whatever your 1 or 2 cost card do that bonus attack and remove whatever the plant in front of it, that the plant player played in front of it, it gives you a lot of tempo, because it basically makes it that you have a lot more stats on the field than your opponent, especially if your science cards are growing in attack every single time they do damage. Because it's really outclassed by Lurch for Lunch and only useful in a few decks, but it does have uses. We're sticking it in C tier together with everything else. Moving right along. Here's Funded Razor. So this is a really slow card draw card. I could even imagine a card like this costing 2 would actually open up a lot of like miracle decks, cards that decks that really require you to draw a lot of cards in order to work. This does buff your tricksters. If you have very specific win conditions in a deck, like you need your certain late game cards, this is a great way to get that. This is an overall very good card still at 3. Drawing cards, by the way, which are in your deck is always better than conjuring random cards. We're gonna find that that is a serious flaw in a lot of other card draw. Let's say in the Brainy class, we'll get to those later. Because this is a part of a lot of top tier decks, it's not part of a lot, because not a lot of decks really require card draw. Again, you lose 3 brains when you play this. So you lose if your opponent plays a tempo play on turn 3 and you go Funded Razor, you're screwed, because that's going to be a lot of tempo that's going to be really hard to make up for afterwards. I am going to put this as a solid B tier, because again, it is an important part of a lot of decks. It's overall an okay card, a decent card, but it really doesn't make it to A because it's a little bit slow. Alright, let's keep it going. Here's Gentleman Zombie. Gentleman Zombie... Gentleman Zombie is... Oh man, where are we going to put this? It has similar uses, let's say, to like Brain Vendor. You actually lose a brain playing Gentleman Zombie. This costs 3 and only gives you 2 back, as opposed to Brain Vendor that costs 3 and gives you 3 back. So it's not exactly a way to ramp up and gain extra brains. If this can survive on the field for multiple turns, that's when you really start getting your value of getting +2 brains every turn. The problem is, again, on the highest level of the game, your opponent will almost always have something to deal with the Gentleman Zombie. He only has 2 health. If this at least had like 3 health or even 4 health, this would actually be a much better card, but it's kind of just too easy to remove. It can also be removed by a Gravebuster, so if you're trying to ramp and you do that, you can play this on the field and leap. It's really just overall super meh. I'm almost considering putting this in D tier because there's very, very few decks that this is actually good. Sorry, Gentleman Zombie, you're going in with Leprechaun Imp. Card that maybe looks like it has a lot of potential, but it seriously doesn't. Alright, moving right along. We have Kite Flyer. This is actually a really decent card draw card. This is actually more efficient, in my opinion, than Funded Razor, because it at least puts a minion on the field. Now, you don't really want to be pinging your opponent's block meter that much, because it really gives them cards, but this can, again, draw cards over multiple turns. You can really stick this in front of one of your opponent's minions, just so you're at least chipping away at the health of one of their minions and blocking damage so you're not dying. That's the advantage of this over Funded Razor. Now, the advantage of Funded Razor is the fact it's a trick. You can only just play Funded Razor. Again, was the card before that draws 2 cards. You can sort of just play Funded Razor when you're not in trouble. If you sort of stick Kite Flyer onto the field and the opponent has an amazing turn 3 play, you're going to get really, really behind. This is good with science. This is very good for budget players if you want a deck that if you have any deck that needs card draw. I would say this is a little bit better than the cards we have in C tier. It's about the same level as the B, so we'll stick this in B. Moving right along. Do we have a lot of people here for the stream? For the last time we had over 500 people watching the live stream here. Today we have almost 500. Thank you everyone for joining us in the live Twitch stream, and thanks for watching this on YouTube. The first tier video actually was like the #1 video on the Frame Up channel for the last few months, so really appreciate everyone's constant support. Alright, moving right along, we are going to do Nebula. This is a card that has undergone a lot of changes. Now, the original stats of this card, it was a 2-cost environment that when you play a zombie here, it gives you 3 extra brains. It took me a really long time, I admit, to see how broken and overpowered Nebula was then, because it just allowed you to ramp up to Bad Moon Rising, to late game cards, to just swarm the field with way too many stats. It just used to give way too much value, especially because, again, this is a zombie environment. Zombie environments are always better because they played last save. They can't be covered that turn by the plant, so you can really stick Nebula on the field and you guaranteed are able to at least get that first value from that first minion you stick into it the next turn. Now, then the Nebula turns into a 3-cost card that would give you 3 brains. Pretty sure that was the stat. It was 3 costs, 3 brains. And they still felt that was too powerful because everyone was still running Bad Moon Rising. Bad Moon Rising decks were basically dominating the meta. It was really easy to get a lot of brains from Nebula using the Buried Treasure was actually probably the #1 combo, because again, you would stick Buried Treasure into it. This will give you it costs 1 and gives you, let's say now 2 brains, or it used to give you 3 brains, which was ridiculous. And then you can actually play another cheap guy, let's say a Brain Vendor, on top of the Buried Treasure to actually use the Nebula many times. That is the best way of using Nebulas, together with Buried Treasure and Brain Vendor, and maybe Swabby and Bad Moon Rising to ramp up to those. Bad Moon Rising we will get to later. This is a card that will turn all of your little guys into super big guys. Now that Nebula, they felt that was too strong, so they made Nebula a 3-cost card that gives you only 2 brains. And this is really a very underpowered card in its current state, because it's an expensive environment. 3 is a lot for an environment. Really, 2 is like par, and how much, especially because there's some really good one-cost environments in this game as well. But this is, again, it just gets covered too easily by the plants, by any plant environment. They even cost 1 less and can be covered the next turn. Also, really just doesn't give you a lot of brains. This is useful in some decks. We still run this in Bad Moon Rising decks and ramp, but it just really doesn't do what it used to. I really would have loved to see this card become a 2-cost, give you 2 brains, because then at least it wouldn't be such a huge investment of 3 brains for an environment that just gives you 2 brains the next turn. It's still useful in some decks. Overall, you can see this actually says 2-cost card, because that was the original stats of the Nebula. I think because this is only useful now in a couple of decks, it's okay. It's either low B or high C tier. It's probably better than the C's. It's probably about the B's. It's comparable, let's say, to Mustache Waxer and Kite Flyer. I'll stick this in B, just because of how this tier list is going overall. And again, it is useful, and it is very, very fun in a lot of decks. Just be very careful when you're using Nebula. Don't just throw this in as the environment in your deck. You have to make sure you're only using this in decks that really need those couple extra brains and have a very clear way, like with Brain Vendors, of ramping up to a clear win condition, and it'll actually help you win the game instead of just being a random environment. I'm gonna say low B tier. Moving, man, I can't believe I have Nebula and Fundead Razor in the same tier though. Like, Fundead Razor would be like way over here, and Nebula would be way the heck down. It's so weird even having those in the same tier. This is better than Cryo Brain though. Yeah, it's just really low B tier. All right, let's keep it going. We got Moonwalker. Oh man. This is a 3-cost 4/4. Again, the main problem is it's a zombie. If this was a plant with the exact same stats, this would be so good. But any dry zombies are just bad because, again, it gives the plant an opportunity to react to this. They could just ignore it and put their own, like card which will grow on the field, like a muscle sprout or a triceratops, something that will eventually end up having more value, and then you're stuck with that growing on the field. This does have a lot of really good stats, though. Oh, man. I just don't feel like this fits into a lot of decks. Like, for budget players, and you're running, like, a science deck, I would suggest using Moonwalker. It's just a good, solid, fat stat card that, again, it's also not limited just to the Heights lane. Like Chimney Sweep. You can actually get that value when it's played extra 2/2 and it's played in an environment. But again, it is limited in that way. If you don't have an environment to play this into, it's not very good. A 3-cost 4/4 that you can play anywhere would be a great like aggro card. That's difficult to remove. This one, it is limited, again, as an aggro card. I'm going to stick this in C since it really just... There's a lot better cards usually to be running in the 3 slot than Moonwalker, but again, it's decent for budget. Moving right along. Oh, here's Mustache Monument. So I explained Mustache Monument before. This is the best, most efficient way of doing bonus attacks in this game. Most notably, you want to use Mustache Monument together with Trickster. That will make the Trickster do 2 attacks of 6 damage, which is 12 total, which is overpowered. You want to use this together in Professor Brainstorm, which is the one who controls both the Crazy and Brainy class. Together with Valkyrie, when this gains a lot of attack, this will basically finish off your opponent on turn 7. Mustache Monument, Valkyrie. It's also very good, let's say, in its class to be used with Unthawed Viking as a notable combo. You definitely have to have that really big sort of finisher in order for this to be good. In order for Mustache Monument, but it really is the most efficient way of doing bonus attacks. You can even like use it. There's weird ways of using this. I've even found you can use the Mustache Monument together with the Beastie class with Immorticia. We actually have a deck that does that. I don't remember what it's called on YouTube. But you can use it with Stellar Bounty Hunter, which will then have Frenzy and do a bunch of attacks and draw you a bunch of cards, or even with cards like Vampire, which will, again, doing immediate attacks combos really, really well with a lot of cards. I'm not going to say this is quite as good as Teleport or Teleportation Zombie, but nonetheless, I am going to put this in S tier because it's really one of the best cards in the game, and it is a really, really important part of a lot of like the top tier zombie decks, notably Valk Trickster Hybrid. Really, really good. All right, let's move right along. Mustache Monument is also just one of these cards that I really did not understand the value. It's actually used to cost 2, and they nerfed it to make it cost 3. Something I really just did not understand the value of. Just the fact, again, that you don't need a teleport. You just have a quick way of doing a bonus attack together with one of your big guys. It's just the most effective way of winning this game is just by launching huge amounts of damage at your opponent as a finisher, not giving them a chance to react to you. I could have put this in A. I'm going to keep it in S because, again, it's an undeniable top tier card in some of the best decks in the game. Probably mostly because of Valk Trickster Hybrid. So good. All right, here's Regifting Zombie.
We need a leap. We need a
Thank you so much, Dreamline Virus. Really appreciate it. Welcome to the family. Now, what am I going to say about Regifting Zombie? This card actually used to cost 2, and it was pretty decent. This is part of the big nerfs that they, got rid of, like the Miracle decks, where you draw too many cards, and it was working too well with Stomp It On. I really don't like this as a 3-cost card. This is a important part of Professor Brainstorm. You can find that on YouTube, which is, it's really good at just a really efficient way of drawing 2 cards. Usually the problem with Regifter, again, is a dry zombie. So those cards that you draw are not going to be usable until the next turn. The plant player, the cards that it draws, they're going to be able to use those to react to this immediately. And sometimes you're going to be giving them... you're basically giving them a head start on the 2-card advantage. It's just actually giving you a disadvantage. Again, you can teleport this in. This can be used as a miracle card in some decks. It is really good in again, it is really good in Professor Brainstorm, where you're just swarming with a lot of little minions, and this will buff your unlives to the party by 1/1 when you play it. Just because the card is just, it's really not, it's intrinsically not a very good card, and again, it's only good in a couple of decks. It's not even necessary in Professor Brainstorm. I am going to put it in C tier. sad regifter. Obviously, if this back when it was, you can see over here the icon even says that it's a 2-cost card. I certainly would have put this much higher tier when it cost 2. But now just for 3, it's just too slow. It's just really too slow. And it's also actually almost always outclassed by Wormhole Gatekeeper, which actually has a lot of really good stats. 2-5, very difficult to remove, and has a very similar ability. This is just a much easier card to keep stable on the field, as opposed to putting a 3-2. It's just too easily removed. Alright, moving right along. Here's Rocket Science. I explained in the Guardian tier list video why Rocket Science is a very fair and balanced, very good card as opposed to Shamrocket. You can go and look that up. I have a video dedicated to that called Why Shamrocket is a Dumb Card. Rocket Science, on the other hand, so again, it's a liability. You have to pass 3 brains. You have to not play 3 brains worth of potential zombies in order to maybe your opponent is going to play a minion on the field that is Rocket Scienceable. Nonetheless, this is a very efficient removal card. This really just removes a lot of big plants. Only weakness are big plants like Potatosaurus. This is also, again, just a very weak card against decks that don't have a lot of 4-attack guys. For its win condition, like Mechanolith decks, most notably. This is a really, really bad card to run into Mechanolith decks. Very solid, very good removal card, though, overall. It's never bad to have a couple of these in a deck. I'm going to put this in A tier. It's really never bad it's really never a bad card to have in your deck, nonetheless. I think it's pretty balanced. Alright. I'm just going to take a quick break. I'm going to take a 1-minute break. I will be back in 1 minute when we finish up this tier list video. See you guys in 1 minute. I need to rest my voice. Chair is S tier. Wonder if I can import a picture of the chair. I don't want to mess with this. That would be cute though. Not really. Where are the Twitch alerts, by the way? Oops. I'm gonna need more room in C tier, I think. How many cards do you do into C tier before it switches to a new lane? Oh gosh. Oh, I probably just have to make this window like shorter. Maybe if I did it like this. Wait. Oh, there. Aha, this is the key. Whoops. How does this look now? It's too squashed. Does this really look that much different? is fine. Alright, amazing. That's a lot better. Oh, but now it has the big, it has this thing. Oh, that's annoying. That doesn't look good at all. Fry's IQ is nest here. You guys are so nice. I'm gonna resume here for a second. I just want to. Well, I guess we don't have to switch lanes. Okay, this is fine. Now, when it covers this, it'll switch. Okay. Beautiful. Alright, moving right along, we're going to Trick or Treater. Now, this card used to be just a dry zombie, non-gravestone, and it was horrible. Then they buffed it, actually, and gave it a gravestone. It's so hard to, like, say which cards are good, better when they're gravestones and not. It really depends on the use, but I think the fact that a 3-cost 2/3 is really easily removed off the field, a 3-cost gravestone is a lot less easily removed off the field. They don't know what's inside. They're going to need a Gravebuster just to remove it. It makes this card a lot better. It gives you, they also buffed treats, which, you know, these treats used to be just horrible pieces of garbage card. They actually made treats a lot better. It'll either give you a 1-cost 1/3 buff card or a 2-cost give a guy 3 attack and 1 health. I'm not going to say this is useful. This would be a lot better if when you play your first trick each turn, it would just draw you any card instead of only giving you treats. Usually getting cards that are in your deck are better than conjuring sort of just random things. You don't really need treats in a lot of decks. There's a couple things that buffing it up. This is okay with Dr. Spacetime because then those treats even cost 1 less. It's just overall meh. It's really hard to find a deck where it's worth running this instead of just running the treats outright in order to conjure them after the fact. And for that reason, but it is okay in a couple decks, we'll just put it in C tier just with everything else. I think C tier is going to be the most common one. This is fine. Moving right along. Okay, here's Wormhole Gatekeeper. This is, again, you don't want to be conjuring too many, or drawing too many cards for your opponent. This does have ridiculous stats for a 3-cost card. 2/5 Bullseye. I don't even think this needed Bullseye, honestly. The deck that actually comes to mind this is very good in is Immorticia OTK Cat Lady. You can go look that up on the Fry 'em Up channel. Really good stats. This is fine to be putting in a science deck. You play Drone Engineer on turn 2, and then you stick this on turn 3, and there's just so much stats on the field. Your opponent's not going to have any idea what to do with it. Again, this is a decent way of drawing cards. Definitely better than Regifter. It draws you more and more, so it's good for Miracle decks. I can't say it fits into too many decks. I certainly don't want to put this in A tier because then it would be up with a lot of really, really useful cards. I would say it's basically on the same level as cards like Neutron Imp and Kite Flyer and Funded Razor. Funded Razor sometimes is good, again, for trickster decks. You want to be drawing those cards using a trick. You also don't, if you need the card draw, it's not a reliable card draw card because, again, this can be removed on turn 3, let's say by Hammer. I don't really know. There's not a lot of cards on the plan side that removes it on turn 3. But again, in later turns, it certainly can. If you're playing it after turn 3 and turn 4 and 5, then there's a lot of cards in the game that remove it, like Shrinking Violet and such. Overall, but again, B means it's a really solid card that is useful in a lot of decks, and we'll just leave it there. It's actually perfect. All right. Here is Blob. This used to be the best card in this, basically the best card in the game. There used to be, you can find it actually from 2017, I believe. We had the Super Brains OTK Blob deck. It was ridiculous. Now this gains 1 attack for every single brain you got this turn. This used to have Bullseye, and Bullseye is actually not the biggest nerf that Zomblob received. The main nerf it received was the nerfing of cards like Nebula, which this used to give you a lot of extra brains. Now, again, this just becomes such a liability to have in your deck. This was one of your main sources of gaining brains, where you would be playing Blob together with Brain Vendor and Nebula. It used to give you a total of 6. Now it only gives you a total of 5, and it's just really expensive to play the... really, just the Nebula is just expensive as a 3-cost card. The other cards that actually made Blob get nerfed is Leprechaun and Regifting Zombie, notably, because again, in a deck where you're just trying to find that one big turn where you teleport in your Blob and use bonus attacks, which essentially is the best way of using this card, you need a very specific set, a combo set, in order to pull that off. So you need your Nebula and your Brain Vendor and your Teleport and your Blob and your bonus attack, in which case you have this amazing one-turn kill strat. But nowadays, again, the card draw, efficient card draw like Regifting Zombie, they used to just draw you a ton of cards. It's just got nerfed down to being almost unusable. Again, the fact that it's not Bullseye anymore also does cause problems, because you usually need to do 2 blob attacks, which means your opponent really has to have an empty block meter in order for this to be guaranteed lethal with a teleport blob. And again, that is with a huge combo of cards that you're ramping up a lot of brains. This deck is still okay. I really should bring this back, a modern version of the Zomblob. I guess I'll do it with Super Brains, because he has those bonus attack for his superpower. I am going to stick Zomblob. I think because it is still a very powerful card, and blob decks are still okay, they're just a shadow of their former self, I'll stick it in B tier. Since again, it is a super powerful card in basically one deck. Moving right along. I really do want to bring back a more modern version of Blob, though. I think it's still actually pretty good. Alright, we got Drum Major. This is just a big fat mess of stats. It's a 4-cost 4/4. Everyone, of course, uses this in their very first Super Brains deck right when they start the game, but on the highest level of the game, this has absolutely no place at all. Not in dancing decks, not in sports decks. It just does not do enough. When you have a zombie, again, this is a card which suffers heavily from the, being a dry zombie plague. That the fact that plants can always answer this, can have the second say. You play this on turn 4. There are so many better things that the plants then can play on turn 4. They're just going to outvalue this in your game. Really has no use on the highest level of the game at all. Easy F. Alright, moving right along, we have Mad Chemist. This card is not good. This has gotten buffed. I think it used to be like a 3/4 and they made it have a little extra health. It doesn't matter. This card has 2 problems. First of all, you can't draw cards with this on turn 4. You can only draw cards with this on turn 5, because in order for this to draw cards, you need to play another trick that turn. Second of all, it only conjures 1 trick per turn. I don't know why they put that limit on this. I think this would be cool if it was a limitless card. But you're spending 4-cost 3/5 mess stats, and it's in order to maybe draw 1 card. Maybe this will be removed by the time it's able to draw anything, in which case it's just a really piece of trash garbage. The main problem is that it's conjuring a random trick instead of drawing a card in your deck. There's just a lot of garbage tricks. This can start just giving you cryo brains when you don't need them. It can start giving you like these really expensive tricks that you're never going to use. You get Garg fees from it. It's just so unreliable. If this would draw you a card in your actual deck, it would be better. You can do some things where you combine this with Dr. Spacetime so the conjure tricks cost less, but it's really an almost completely unplayable card. I'm actually sticking Mad Chemist in D tier because it's not as good as the cards that we have in C tier. This is a really big mess of a card. I would have loved if this did not have the limit, that you can actually play a whole bunch of little tricks, and it would almost be the, there's this Hearthstone card that basically draws a card every single time you play a spell. I forget what it's called. It's the 5-cost goblin-looking guy. Auctioneer. I really don't think that on the highest level of the game, Mad Chemist really deserves to be in any deck, so that's why I'm putting it in D, even though it's just an okay card. Moving right along. That's right. Chemist is a D, guys. Live with it. Here's Mountain Climber. Ugh. This is a 4/4/4, so it's basically a drum major that has Bullseye, but it only works when it's on heights. It doesn't even work in an environment like Moonwalker. It's just such a bad piece of garbage. I actually wish this card did not exist.
Could I get a soul patch impression?
Soul patch impression?
Laughing
Thank you so much.
face.
Toasty. Thank you for 9 months. Holy moly with that. I actually wish this card this would be in the please delete tier if we were running one for if we are running one for this class, because the only thing that this happens is you leap your 3-cost cards and then turn to stupid Mountain Climber and they just get removed because it only has 2/2 inside your freaking transformation station. That's really the only time you ever see Mountain Climber is when it's just a failed leap. Get that weak stuff out of here. I wish I could. Should I make a lower tier here? No, I'll just leave it like that. Here's Parasol Zombie. Parasol Zombie is a really good card and a really horrible card. It really depends. The untrickable is the fact it is untrickable and it gives the two guys next to it untrickable is actually a really strong ability, if not for the fact that once you start getting into turn 4, 5, and 6, there's a lot of plants that don't rely on tricks in order to remove zombies off the field. There's just plants like Cop Cannon, Three-Headed Chomper are all just really good answers to Parasol Zombie. This does, prevent you from getting shamrocketed and stuff. There are just... This also has the sort of, again, sickness of being a dry zombie. Because, again, for a 4-cost card, it has decent stats, but there are a lot of 4-cost cards that the plant can play that they'll just stick in front of Parasol. And they'll have just even a 4-cost 4/4. They'll clash for 4 damage, for 4 versus 3 on turn 4. And then on turn 5, they'll just trade and knock each other off the field. And that's really... before you're going to really be able to get your value from Parasol Zombie. I've also tried Parasol Zombie in decks with, let's say, lower cost cards to protect them from getting field cleared, but it's usually just better to get better cards that are not field clearable on the field than relying on Parasol Zombie in order to protect them, because if you don't get Parasol Zombie, the rest of your deck is garbage if it's a really easily field clearable deck. I find the best combo of Parasol Zombie is actually with Immorticia. You can play Parasol Zombie in order to set up cards like big finisher cards like Maniacal Laugh. Usually if you have Parasol Zombie, they're not going to be, like, even if they play like Three-Headed Chomper, I guess Cob Cannon will remove it, but usually between it and the zombies is protected. It is pretty good with Maniacal Laugh. I do really use this in a lot of decent decks. I'm going to give it a B. Just because, again, it is a useful part of some decks, like I explained, but it's just not A tier. Alright, moving right along. Here's Thinking Cap. Thinking Cap, I just want to put one thing out here. Unless you have exactly the correct deck for Thinking Cap is garbage. You do not want to just be running this as a card. Look, it's 4 cost and gives you 2 superpowers. These superpowers still cost 1. So essentially, what this card is a 6 cost play 2 superpowers. That's how much it sort of costs total. And superpowers are usually the equivalent of either a 2 or a 3 cost card. Let's say ultimate abilities are made to basically be 3 cost cards, and the secondary abilities are made to be, in general, 2 cost cards. Obviously, there's a lot of exceptions. I will make a tier list for the superpowers eventually. This is very unreliable because you don't know which superpowers you're going to get. Every once in a while, you'll get these overall just amazing superpowers like Super Brain Super or Smash's ultimate ability or even Infinity or Neptuna. But every once in a while, you'll just get like a random chop that is completely unplayable. You'll get backup dancers. You'll just get a lot of garbage. Again, there's plenty of lightning bolts and things which are kind of always good that you can get from Thinking Cap, but it's still not worth it to spend 6, let's say to spend 6 and you get 2 lightning bolts, which is actually above average for superpowers. Spending 6 brains for 2 shots of 3 damage is really not a good deal. It's actually very underpowered. Thank you, Waka Waka. Really appreciate it. 2 months subscribing. Now, this card becomes very good when it's either combined with a card in a different class, which again, it just makes it a lot less useful. The 2 cards are Teacher, because then the Thinking Cap itself costs 3, and the 2 superpowers are then free. So then, instead of being 6 costs for 2 superpowers, it's 3 costs for 2 superpowers, which is ridiculous value. The problem with this is Zombology Teacher is a very weak card and very difficult to stay on the field. So the main combo they actually use Thinking Cap, combine it with, is Dr. Spacetime. Which will then, it'll then be a 4 cost card, 2 superpowers, which is a good deal because superpowers are usually more, give you more value than just 2 brains apiece. And that is a viable combo for Heat Giganticus or Super Brains only. Since in most decks, Thinking Cap is not good, but there are some decks where it is very, very good. Especially if you're trying to like do a, you know, Super Brains Trickster deck. You really need Thinking Cap in order to have like your cheap tricks. It really is very good with Trickster because it'll charge it 3 times. Huh. B tier? We'll put it in B tier. Solid B. It is good. And again, you do run in a bunch of decks. Alright, moving right along. Triplication. This is such a flawed card. Drawing cards in your deck is a good thing. Conjuring a random imp, a random zombie, and a random Gargantuar it's just garbage. First of all, most Gargantuars in this game are garbage because they just get easily answered by Shamrocket and Squash. So you usually get one dead card just right off the bat. Your imp could just end up being a regular imp. It's just so unreliable. If this card drew you 3 cards in your deck, that would be good. Don't say combine this with Dr. Spacetime and each of the cards will still cost 1 less. It would still be better to draw 3 cards in your deck. I wish this said draw 3 cards in your deck. Even then, it would be a little expensive for 4. You don't really want to be drawing on turn 4 going into turn 5 because you lose a lot of tempo. Turn 4 is such an important, you know, turn in the game. Usually a tempo swinging time in the game. You don't really want to be drawing cards. Anyway, this is just going straight into F tier. It's completely unplayable. It's a piece of trash garbage. Moving right along. Here's Chopper Commando. Again, it's just a 5 cost 6/5. Any zombie that costs 5 or more and just has stats is almost completely unplayable in the game, especially because this one doesn't have good stats. At least this should be a 6/6 or something. Really just garbage. We're going to put this in. It says over here on the tier list, you can see it says 6 cost because this used to just be a token coming from Halocopter. Now it's actually its own card. They made it for some reason to its own card that costs 5. Who cares? Moving right along. Get that weak stuff out of here. Alright, so here is Gadget Scientist. Gadget Scientist, I explained before, is a really good finisher in just science decks. Now, you have to really build your whole deck around Gadget Scientist for it to be good. You have to sort of have high attack science zombies, which is not actually an easy thing to do, because that means your drone engineer had to have survived for a number of turns in order to buff them up. There's really not a lot of high attack science cards, other than maybe playing like Halocopter on turn 6 and playing Gadget Scientist on turn 7 is viable. You can also do a lot of really weird stuff with Gadget Scientist, like combining it with Mime Garg, which I'm going to get to in a second. Now, this is not a good combo, guys. Mime Garg and Gadget Scientist in the same deck, I've tried it a lot of times. When it works, it's amazing. It does like 20 damage in 1 turn, but it's so unreliable, again, because if you have your... This is a turn 10 combo. So if you are having your Mime Garg on the field, this would have to survive on the field, and your science cards, your 1 or 2 science cards, and you'd also have to have the Gadget Scientist in your hand. And for all those things to happen sort of in 1 turn is very unlikely. And the best way to actually use Gadget Scientist is to play science cards and buff them up. So you can really buff your science cards. The best way to actually do this is Professor Brainstorm and use this guy. You can find I think you can find on YouTube the sweet science deck where you use Sugary Tree to buff your guys, and then, you know, on the trick stage, and then you immediately play your Gadget Scientist. And thank you so much for subscribing with Twitch Prime. Huge shout out to Forgiving. Check out his stream. Overwatch player, really good Overwatch player. So here is Sugary. So you can, again, buff up your science cards with this or with lunchboxes even, and use your Gadget Scientist. Overall, it's a decent card. It's a very necessary finisher in a lot of decks. I'm not going to say it's actually as necessary as Drone Engineer for science decks, and it's not as good of a card, because you can really play, you know, Drone Engineer and actually just use going viral and bonus attacks to finish off your opponent. I'm going to give it a solid B tier, though, since, again, it does have a lot of uses in a lot of decks. Alright, moving right along. There, I finally shout out Forgiving. Little tiny streamer who super underrated. Hope his channel does well. Alright. Here's Mime Garg. Mime Garg it's usual. Again, this is usually a really bad card to run in your deck. First of all, playing this dry, it's a 5/5/7. It has amazing ability. Doesn't matter. It's usually just answered by Shamrocket or Squash or whatever removal card your opponent has. Just bam, it's off the field. So this again does have the sickness. We can call this the the dry sickness of just being a non-gravestone, just dry 5 or cost more zombie. On the other hand, when you teleport this in, you can do some really, really crazy combos. The things I really were able to do this with is teleporting this in and then playing Mustache Monument Trickster the next turn. I think I posted decks for every single Brainy hero using that combo. Definitely did it for Brainstorm and Morticia. You can do it with Rust Bowl too, and that is actually amazing. So again, the play is teleport Mime Guard on turn 6. And then you play Mustache Monument with Trickster on turn 7. That will make the Trickster do 2 bonus attacks, then the Mime Guard will do 2 bonus attacks, and that results in a 22 damage combo that will usually finish off your opponent. And it's really, really good in that deck. The Mime Trickster is like a really, really solid combo. Now, I need to just point out a few things of how not to use Mime Gargantuar. A lot of people say, Fry, you should use Mime Gargantuar with Rust Bolt together with Going Viral. And that will give all your cards Frenzy, and they're going to end up doing all these bonus attacks. They're frenzied attacks, and then your Mime Garg is going to end up doing a bonus attack every single time one of your Frenzy guys does a bonus attack. Again, a frenzied attack is considered a bonus attack in this game. And the reason that that's not a good strategy is simply because Going Viral, you'd have to play your Mime Garg basically on turn 5. And then on turn 6 is the time you're going to be playing Going Viral. So the chances that your Mime Guard, first of all, survives both turn 5 and turn 6 is almost 0 if you're playing against any half-decent plant deck. Also, the other guys are going to have to survive on the field and also end up with plants against them for 2 turns. Like on turn 5 and on turn 6, they're going to have to end up like with plants that they can kill, and with the extra 1/1 Going Viral, actually able to do those bonus attacks. Basically, it's almost an impossible strategy to pull off, so stop asking me. This is a card which is extremely, extremely good in a couple of decks, but is basically useless all over the game, and that's why it's going together with all of its friends in B tier. Alright. Here we go. Pirate's Booty. This card is ass. This is so bad. Guys, just get it? Just compare this card to like the decent B tier Lurch for Lunch. Not Funded Razor, I mean, which just draws you 2 cards. Now, this, if you have 2 minions on the field, and again, this is a trick. So your 2 minions have to have played on the field, survive turn 4, and survive on turn 5. Then this does the exact same thing as the card that costs 2 less, Funded Razor. The chances of having 3 cards, even a 3rd card that survives turn 4 and turn 5 in order to draw a 3rd card is almost completely impossible. If this card costs 3, literally costs exactly the same as Funded Razor, I think Funded Razor would still be better because it just solidly, reliably draws you those 2 cards instead of this one, which will usually draw you 0. Maybe it'll draw you 1. 2 would be amazing. 3 is still almost impossible. This card is so bad. It's so garbage. I actually would put this in delete tier too. You know what? I'm making a delete tier. Screw it. This is the last straw. I'm making a delete tier. I had enough of this. Here, let's go. Oh my god. So I spell emoji? I'm such a boomer. Alright, we did it. There. We're going in here. I'm gonna get this guy. I just don't. I wish the card. It's not that it's F and it's unplayable. I wish the cards just didn't exist because you just end up conjuring this from like, you know, your random tricks that you conjure from, I don't know, Mad Chemist, and you just start leaping it into into these pieces of trash garbage. I have to fix the chrome a little bit. Here we go. I'll make it a little bit smaller. Perfect. There. What else are we sticking in here? Even Cardboard Zombie at least doesn't get like conjured as often as these stupid leap cards. I think we'll just stick you in here too. Alright. Moving right along. Such a piece of trash garbage. Alright, here is a Portal Technician. Now, this is a cool card. It doesn't have good enough stats for its cost. So 5 costs 4/4. So the only time it's good is if it gets removed, and your opponent could just not remove it. Like, it's not a big enough threat on turn 5, being a 4/4 that your opponent has to. So you stick this in front of one of your opponent's minions. It's too circumstantial that this will get any value. I really have not found a good. This actually used to be a 6-cost card. I haven't really found any good decks to use Portal Technician. You teleport in Portal Technician in front of one of their minions. It's like such a bad use of a teleport. There's such better cards. Just compare this to just like having Teleport Viking. That just 7 damage bullseye to your opponent's face, puts a 7/5 in the field, drains their block meter, sets up the win the next turn. Like, this doesn't. If you have a card, every card in your deck has to help you win. It has to contribute to your overall win condition. What win condition is Portal Technician part of? Like, what? When is this ever going to be a good idea? Valkyrie, because there's 2 minions. Stupid idea. Guys, dumb idea. And for that reason, I am putting Portal Technician. I'm putting an F tier. It's really completely unplayable. Again, it's okay if you're just having an RNG deck, like we used to run, like Professor Pay Too Much to win, like a Garg Feast deck. We used to throw a couple of these in here and teleport them in front of the opponent's minions just for kicks, but it's really so unreliable. And again, the minion it creates, there's a lot more 1-cost zombies in the game than there are zombies that cost 5 or more. So usually this is just going to make a 1 or 2-cost card, which is just going to be horrible value in general. So because of unreliability and just in general not able to find a deck to fit it into, I'm putting it in F tier. It's a fun card. It's a fun card. So is Mad Chemist. It doesn't make it get out of F tier. Should I put it in D just because it's a little fun? No, I'm keeping F. Shut up, guys. Alright, now, if you're looking for a good 5-cost card, this is decent. Now, again, this has the dry zombie sickness of being a 5-cost card that essentially just has stats. This is so easy. It has this ability of draining the opponent's block meter, but that ability is almost impossible to pull off if you just throw this on the field, because they can literally stick a weenie beanie in front of this, which will prevent it from doing its bonus attack. They can remove this with Shamrocket, remove it with Squash. All the removal cards will take it off the field before that ability activates. You can play this on turn 7 together with bonus attack. Again, really bad idea, because on turn 7 they'll probably just win the game. If you spend 5 brains on this card, you're not even going to have a chance to do that bonus attack. Also, they can just easily remove it off the field. The only way to really use Shield Crusher Viking is together with Teleport, because then they can't answer, and this does a huge, again, 7 bullseye and remove your opponent's block meter. That is a really good way of using Shield Crusher. Even better is to use it in with Mustache Monument. This is actually the finishing combo in the Professor Mustache deck I showed you before. Very, very useful. Again, it's not useful in a ton of decks. There's a lot of better cards in the game, but it's fine. I'll stick it in B tier with those cards that are just like really good in a couple decks, but overall, pretty crappy card. I think it fits right there. Guys are saying Viking easy A. I'm going to say it's B. Because again, it's not... I would put it in A, but if it was useful in a ton of decks, like a lot of... But it's really only useful in a few... In just a few decks it's worth running. That's why it's in B. Alright. Here's Hail A Copter, which I actually called this card for 4 years Hail O Copter. It's Hail A Copter. Shut up. Alright, so this is a good version of Chopper Commando because it does not have the dry zombie disease. Instead of playing this dry in the field and letting your opponent answer, you can actually play this after the fact and use this to respond to your opponent, or you can just summon this to an empty lane and it does 6 damage for a 6-cost card. That really is not bad. This is actually a very good card for what it does. Summoning a 6/5. You can use it as a control card, late game control card. It's not quite as efficient as Rocket Science and things like that, but you can use it also. It puts tempo on the field. You can use it as an aggro card as a finisher. You can summon this onto the field and play Gadget Sciences, which I think is a really good idea for budget players to be running like a science deck with Drone Engineer. And Drone Engineer, you run, then on turn 6, you're going to play Chopper, Helicopter. And on turn 7, you play Gadget Scientist, and that will do a lot of damage. You can also just play this onto the field and use Lurch for Lunch to make it for 2-cost card, make it do a bonus attack. That's a turn 8 combo, which is okay. Again, you're not going to see this a lot on the highest level of the game, but this is really, really good card for budget players. I feel like I would even use this more if it fit into more decks. On the highest level of the game, it really doesn't fit into a lot of decks, though. I'm sort of split to put this either in B tier or C tier. I just feel like I would love to use this card more. It is a little expensive on the highest level of the game. Since I'm going to be making this in terms of what the highest level of the game is, I'm going to sort of reluctantly put this in C tier, but for budget players, this is solid B or even A, because I really think overall this is a good card. It's just outclassed it just doesn't find it's hard to really find a deck on the highest level of the game that this even fits into. So we'll put it in C. Alright. Kitchen Sink Zombie. Now, I've heard some people say this is the best card in the game. Look how many abilities. It has armor, it's got Bullseye, Frenzy, Overshoot, Anti-Hero. Guys, at the end of the day, this card has the same problem as every 5 or more cost card that just has stats. And it does just have stats. It does not affect the field in any way. Then the Overshoot 2, I guess, the ability begin, that just does 2 extra damage to your opponent's phase. It has Frenzy. This is really just a stat card. And it is removed if it's played dry. It's removed by Shamrocket, removed by Cob Cannon, removed by all the removal cards. If you play it in front of another minion, so it dodges Shamrocket, but then it's just removed by Hammer. And there's actually a lot of things that can deal with this. There's a lot of cards that, also, if you just play this on the field, if you put a 4 health plant in front of this is really just going to be doing 2 damage that turn, which is just not enough for a 6-cost card. I think at like 5, this would be a lot better. Just because it would be a ridiculous amount of stats for a 5-cost card, and it's a little bit difficult to answer. 6, it's just too slow. There's such better cards in this game. Even Unthawed Viking, or Shield Crusher Viking, I mean, is the much better card because, again, doing 6 damage immediately to your opponent's face, or 7 bullseye. 7 bullseye, and this ability is a lot better. If you combine it with Mustache Monument, also this card costs 1 less. The difference between a 5 and 6 cost card really makes this bad. I don't know why people are saying A. This is actually a really, really bad card, and it's almost completely unplayable on the highest level of the game. And I, for that reason, will be sticking this in D tier. That's right, guys. It's one of the most overrated. This is seriously one of the most overrated cards in the entire game. People just look at this. They get like this little thing. They're like, Bullseye, Frenzy, give me more. So much abilities, best card. No, it's not. It's really, really not. Every once in a while, you'll see this take over a game. The same way every once in a while, you'll see Mad Chemist and Gentleman Zombie take over the game. If for some reason the opponent not only can't answer this card on turn 6, but also has nothing that they can play that will finish off the opponent on turn 6. Usually games are not going past turn 6 or 7 on the highest level of the game. That's what I'm putting in D. Alright. Wizard Garg is a perfect example of, again, a Gargantuar with just dry zombie sickness. It's just a stat card. It has Bullseye. Who cares? The Garg synergy is almost impossible to pull off. Again, you can try teleporting this in. There's just just compare this to Shield Crusher. It's so outclassed by Shield Crusher. This is so much better. Don't try to pull Garg synergy, guys, because, again, the chances of a Gargantuar, you play it on the field, it survives that turn, and then it survives the next turn that you can even, get your Wizard Garg to activate it. It's almost impossible. This is actually a completely unplayable card. I'm putting it in F tier. I seriously going to be making a point to be putting a lot of the big dry zombies. A lot of them are going to end up in F tier because they're almost completely unplayable, especially 6 or more cost. Maybe the 5 cost cards. Maybe there's a use for it. All right, here's this card, Baboon Rising. This is probably overall the most fun card in the game. Just turning your little random guys into huge, and it's so random. You get Zombie, you get Trickster, Binary Stars, you start getting all your Gargantuars, which are usually unplayable, and they're actually good now because, again, it's just getting so much value out of these little tiny cards turning into the big ones. This is a very good combo with Swabby, which is free, or Brain Vendor, which essentially is free, especially with Nebula. Then you can play this a little bit earlier. So not only is this an extremely fun card, this actually is an extremely effective card. This is a viable win condition, not only for budget players, but even on the highest level of the game. Now, again, this got nerfed a lot when card draw got nerfed, because usually drawing a lot of cards would help you set up like the combo with a lot of little minions and a Baboon Rising. Also, again, Nebula got nerfed, which really helps you, prevents you from ramping up efficiently, but it's still decent. I would probably, nowadays in the state of the game, have given this, just in terms of how effective of a card it is, I would put it in B tier, but because it's the most fun card in the game, and I very, very strongly suggest everyone craft a few copies of these, especially for budget players, because this is really the only... You can combine this with a pure budget deck and just have Buried Treasures and Brain Vendors and basic control cards and actually make a deck out of that. And it's a pretty reliable win condition. Every once in a while you have a sad Moon Rising where it turns up to a bunch of freaking, I don't know, blow imp and all kinds of garbage, but usually you're going to get a lot. You get a big frenzy minions, and every once in a while you get that Zombot. I'm going to give that a nice solid A tier card. This is going to be the one where I'm going to get a lot of crap from people. This card is not nearly as good as it looks. It is way, way too expensive at 7. I feel like at 6 this could actually work. If you play this dry on the field on turn 7 or on turn 8, it will be removed by Shamrocket. It will be removed by Squash. This is so expensive. This is really, really, really... Now, again, if you teleport this in, then it's fine, because it's 6/7, has good stats, has that bullseye. You're teleporting this in, though, on turn 8, or on turn 7 if you're lucky, if you have a teleportation zombie that can somehow survive turn 6 and turn 7. It's really difficult. If you have a teleportation, it's almost impossible for a teleportation zombie to survive 6 and 7, unless you teleport the teleportation zombie in on turn 6 and then play this on 7. Still a very unreliable strategy. I maybe should try the deck again where you try to teleport this in, because if you can get this in on the field, it'll just... I mean, the history cards are just ridiculous. Start getting Undying Pharaohs and start getting their... You know, Mondo Bronto is a history card you always get in the water lane. It's the only amphibious history card, which is a 5-cost dinosaur. It's really, really good. You can play the Mechasaur on dry on turn 7 if you have, let's say, a Buried Treasure on the field, because then that will immediately activate it. Again, usually the Buried Treasure does not survive. I guess you can ramp up to this. I really should try another deck with Mechasaur, but maybe I'll do that tomorrow. Maybe I'll try like a ramp Dynatronic Mechasaur. Again, you can find some decks on YouTube where I use this, and it is okay. It's not nearly as good as it looks, because again, usually it's 2-eye maintenance. It will usually be removed before it does anything when you play it dry, and you need it then to have teleport, and it's turn 8. It's way too late. And for that reason, I'm going to stick it in... I'm going to stick it in D tier. It's just in terms of playability. I could put it in C. It probably is better than the cards in D tier. Alright, I'll stick it in C. It's probably just as useful in the highest level of the game as Helicopter and freaking Trick or Treater, Duck Stash. It's about the same as Duck Stash, to be honest. Alright, and here's the last card, of course, in the Brainy class. One of the best cards in the entire game. If you're going to start crafting legendaries, this would be one of the cards I would say start crafting, because you can really just make a deck out of 4 Tricksters. You don't have to have any really more expensive cards. This is a Trickster. It does an immediate bonus attack when played, so you can play this on the field just dry, because then it doesn't have the problem of being a zombie dry, because you still got that 6 damage bonus attack. Which is a really good finisher. The best way, of course, though, to play this is together, either with Teleport, because then you teleport it in and it'll do 12 damage, it does a bonus attack, and then the attack phase does another 6. Or even better is to play it together with Mustache Monument, which will make this do immediately just bam, bam, 12 damage, and you still have your huge 6/6 on the field that they have to deal with that turn. It's part of Valk Trickster Hybrid, but you can make just Trickster decks. You just have to make sure you have a lot of tricks that can control your opponent while setting up your big Trickster combo to finish off. This is going to easily go into S tier, being one of the best cards in the entire game. It's actually in set 1, when this game was made, this used to be a 7-7, which means it really just takes 3 trickster shots to finish off your opponent completely, which was way too overpowered. They nerfed it to 6. I think this is a balanced card. I'm really happy that it exists in its state. I don't think it's overpowered, but it is one of the best cards in the game. Now, just want to give you guys one sort of trick for trickster decks that's really important. I feel like a lot of people sort of miss this, is that the lucky number is 12. So this doesn't have bullseye. So you really need to do 8 damage to your opponent and then proc their block. And that, once you do that, your trickster finishes off your opponent all in one turn, let's say with either teleport or with Mustache Monument. So the best way to do that is with cards like Beam Me Up. This will start chipping again to get 8 damage worth of Beam Me Up, and maybe if you're running Barrel of Deadbeards in your deck or any of the other little cards you're running around this, that 8 damage and then you proccing their block is totally doable. It's really nice to run in Professor Brainstorm. You want to run Trickster together with Bungee Plumber. This Bungee Plumber can contribute towards that 8 damage, and this is also and especially a very good way of proccing your opponent's block, making sure they have the empty block meter before you come in with the Trickster combo. It also is an extremely good budget, little cheap card to control, and it makes the Trickster cost 1 less every single time you play a trick, obviously. So that is the Brainy class. Really happy with the way this tier list panned out. Hope you guys enjoyed. Again, let me know in the comment section below which class you would like to see me do next. I do plan on doing all of them. Hope you guys enjoyed. That was the Brainy class. Peace. This is Fry. Oh yeah. My voice goes to crap every single time I do a tier list. It's so much talking. That's why I just run out of voice power. Let's do the daily and we'll call the day. Guys, leave the comments in the YouTube. I know everyone on Twitch wants. I could listen to Twitch actually. I'll keep an eye on you. It seems like the consensus is Kabloomy to go next, or Solar. I kind of like the thing switching between plants and zombies. It's fun. All right, I'm gonna do the daily challenge, and we are gonna. How many people stayed for the end of this? Almost 500 people. Ridiculous. Let's get into the daily. Yeet. Trickster's a good card. Funny, Trickster is funny. Going viral will make... Oh my gosh, what the heck is this? Here's Mustache Aggro. Man, this is seriously one of the... This is actually a really, really good deck. Not a lot of people... We just don't end up talking about it. It didn't get a lot of views on YouTube. It's just not very well known. Which is fine. It'll be our dirty little secret. What the heck is going on with this die? 1, 2, 3. La 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 la. You guys want to know why this was better as a 1-3? Voila. Great example. Probably you inspired me. I'm going to play PvZ Heroes again. Oh. I'm glad I can be inspiring to people. Overall better. There's no sound. Oh yeah, I'll turn that on. Thanks. I turned it off just for the... No need to have the PvZ music in the background of the vid. It's overall better playing or drinking Violet. Fine. This is a good card. Great stats. One cost? That's a pretty good going viral. It's also pretty good shrinking Violet, but let's hope our opponent's not running that. Valkster seems way too expensive to craft, honestly, but you don't have to craft the whole thing. Like, you can just start with either your Tricksters or your Valkyries. And you already have a good deck. Like, you don't need Trickster. Have just Trickster deck or just Valkyrie is fine. And you don't need the teleports because you have Mustache Monument, even though teleports are good. Then you can craft your teleports. I would say, you know, Quasar is a fine card. Barrel of Deadbeard's not so much. But, wow. Give me a Camel Cross. We need a leap. Real Dami. Oh, he made a final. Yeah, let's think. Wait. I don't know. Probably just protect this one. If we get like a Hardy treat or something, it would be better. La la la. Probably just go with the gravestone. I forgot it's doing damage this one. Got on life is pretty good. Time to yeet. It's a 3-3. The deck I'm playing doesn't have Hardy Treat in it. Oh snap! Oh snap! This is really good. Get wrecked. We're doing 13. Not bad. Not bad at all. You kill everyone. Legends of Runeterra? I'm almost tempted to do Legends of Runeterra now. It just seems like it would be easy. It just seems like it would be easier than doing variety games. Just to play one game. But I sort of promised myself I'm not going to switch things again. I mean, I could do Legends of Runeterra just for like 1 week. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm doing. It's guaranteed lethal. We need a leap. Doesn't matter. Pirate's Booty. Pirate's Booty might be the worst card in the game. It's so bad. Pirate's Booty is ass. I said it. And runs dragon. Horrible card. Should I do Legends of Runeterra? Who here plays Legends of Runeterra? We have 400 people here. Who plays Legends of freaking Runeterra? I need to dock this thing. It's too many tabs. Yes or no? It would just take me too long to get good at the game. It would take me a few months of playing it non-stop to get good at it, which I can totally do. I mean, I don't know. If I'm gonna do it, I have to do it now because it's gonna be too late. There's only, I don't know. Only the people that play it will watch it anyway. That's the thing. That's the reason why I don't want to do another card game. It's because I want to do like a set 5 leak. This is a joke. I don't know. I think I'm still gonna stick with variety games. I haven't even streamed this week yet. I have to try to stream tonight. Let's just end off with one game of Valk Trickster Hybrid just to celebrate today's tier list. We'll call it a day. Should be fine. You can keep 2 Tricksters if you have enough tricks. If you have like 2 trick cards, basically. Early game. Can you get that weak stuff out of here, please? deck list up. That is a problem. Huge problem. You do burn that for a card if you don't have a play next turn. Especially with 2 Tricksters in the hand. It's worth it. Oh my gosh! Stop! Okay. Burn a Mustache Monument. We just need an activator for these Quasards. Once we start getting these going, we'll be okay. Horrible hand, by the way. Really bad. Just hoping to get anything, even something that helped us so much. Community card reaction? I don't know. He just use a superpower? What an annoying guy. With Valk. So if we get a playable superpower, we'll play it. If not, we'll just Quasar it up again. It's playable. You think he's a hacker? No. So annoying. Annoying. Wow. I guess we'll go after this one. These both die. Such sadness. The saddest day ever. If I don't get another... Oh, there's fruitcake. Ah, such crap hand. I don't like it. Oh, could have done this. La 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 la. I think it's just 2 and 2. La di da di da di da. I'm not playing Fears today. I have no more energy. Wow. This guy. Yeet. Pretty good. Valk's getting hefty. Oh my gosh. I need some early game control. I don't have any activators. We are getting screwed, folks. I think I burn a Trickster here because we have plenty of win conditions. We just need not die to Triceratops. This is a passability, but it still is 4. It also puts some tempo on the field. This is gonna end up just being Valk. Oh my gosh. I just need a barrel of barrels or something to get this Quasar going. It'll put me so far ahead. Let's go. I almost might just play this Valk. Okay, we got another Valk. Congratulations. Give me an environment. Oh, that's not bad. Oh my gosh. I'm definitely going after this one. La 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 la. Beat me up does not help. Yeet. I feel like we're just gonna end up going for OTK Valk anyway here. I could just play Trickster dry. The 20 health gives us the luxury of doing this. I think we're gonna go for 6 and 12. Yeah, that should actually work. We have the beat me up to controller. If he plays Dragon, we win. Play Dragon in 4, we don't win. Ooh, that would actually hurt. Dragon in 4 would be such a good play. I think the mustache is gonna do more with the Valk. We need the Valk to win now, so this has 10, this does 6, so it's definitely better with this. Valk has become our win condition. he's also has to consider if he's gonna like play it in lane 2, because then he'll take 6 more damage. Didn't he already use his beta super? He must have used a... Okay. Could you please block this? Thank you. So now Valk will have 14, right? Yeah, that's guaranteed lethal. Bogs, such bogs. Much wow. No! Oh, it pinged his block meter! No! That screwed it up! Oh, I forgot about Splippy. That's so lucky. That is actually so stupidly lucky. We'll burn a teleport here, see if we can proc the block. Oh, it's so dumb. Come on, man. This is what he got from his superpower, too. That is so freaking lucky. Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh. Well, this is unplayable now, so we'll just burn it. Oh! This should proc the block. This should do it. Actually, he'll proc his own block, too. This is fine. Yeah, I think it's guaranteed. I forgot that Splippy's just gonna proc his own block the next turn, so it's fine. Yeah, that's guaranteed lethal. Easy, overkill. That's the real Valk Trickster hybrid. Does 2 damage. Doesn't ruin anything. There, we use the Tricksters to control, and then use the Valk to win. Both of these Valks actually win here. Yeet! Oh no, that one would have only done 8. Damn. Anyway. Alright guys, I gotta go. That was a long stream. It takes a lot of energy to do these tier lists. I like doing this out. I want to keep doing one per week. Maybe I'll upload this to YouTube. I want to do a highlight comp. I'm a little stressed out from we did Among Us last week, and I was trying to make a highlight video out of it. I don't know. It's pretty hard to make a video out of. But anyway, is Grave Robber reliable? The 1-cost card? I would say yes, because worst case scenario it trades 1 for 1. It's hard to make a good.
What deck should I use to get Ultimate League? I have all cards and Heroes Trough. All legitimate gaming OFC. Also love you.
Thank you so much, Anime. So good decks. If you want a really quick one, you can use Aggro Solar Flare. If you want a really reliable one, Valk Trickster Hybrid, super powerful. You can use Mustache Aggro, the one I showed you today. You can use Psycho Pine Clone is really good. Psycho Cap is really good. Yeah, most of the decks I post on YouTube, you know, that have at least an 8 and 2 win 80%, you can hit Ultimate League with. Aggro Solar Flare is easy to control. I just don't... First of all, it's not that easy to control. It's weak mostly just to Bungee Plumbers. It's only crazy heroes that are good at controlling it. I feel the Elderberries and the late game and stuff like that are pretty hard to control. More Scriblio. I'm gonna spend a little time today. I have to do my taxes. They're due. I don't even know when they're due. You get so much satisfaction beating Aggro Solar Flare. Again, it's a good deck because every once in a while you're gonna get completely owned, but it's still a very good deck because a lot of heroes do not. A lot of people in ranked don't have a good deck to control it. We'll do a hero tier list. We'll do a superpower tier list eventually too. Pro Bullet, happy birthday. Tax stream where I just do my taxes. Let's raid someone. You guys like raiding? Who the hell would I raid though? I don't have anyone to raid. My voice is dead. I have to not stream anymore. My voice is dead. I have to not stream anymore. Anyone playing PvZ Heroes? Burger King is playing. Anyone playing PvZ Heroes? Is it showing my stream here? It's so weird. There's so many streamers on Twitch. I don't know. I'll raid myself. Should I find a random streamer to raid? Should I raid Shinmiri? He's still playing Gwent? I can't believe he still plays Gwent. Let's raid Swim. Legends or Runeterra.
It's really expensive. At 2 mana, he will likely have a pretty legitimate punish for pocket aces.
I'm raiding Swim
Feels like I
stream.
can't really
He's
get
a
around that,
Legends
right?
Runeterra player.
Yeah, I don't know why I kicked Elixir of Iron there. That was just really, really trolling.
We need a leap. We need a leap.
And thank you so much, Anime,
Hi.
for subscribing 2 months. Really appreciate it.
Changing Bilge and playing Assembly Bot and Plaza Guardian. You have some amount of spell payoff with those, but they're not really how this deck is meant to function, right? Like, you want